Today, I want to expand your definition of love. And there's a simple reason why I want to do that. Because if you are able to embrace a more expansive experience of love in your life, you will feel it more. And in my opinion, that's why we're here. You and I are here on this planet, living this life, because we are meant to give and receive love. You are meant to experience it. And it is all around you, just waiting for you to be open to how it shows up and to be open to giving it more freely. And I used to have a very, very narrow definition of love. And I'm going to get into what that was and how it's evolved and how that's changed my life. But first, I want to tell you the story of how I even came to sign off the podcast and sign off my newsletters and sign off my YouTube videos by saying, and in case nobody else tells you, I wanted to be sure to tell you that I love you and I believe in you, because I was inspired by somebody else. So in order to tell you the origin story of how I became inspired to tell you that I love you and that I believe in you, I got to take you all the way back to, 2013. I was at one of my very, very, very first ever speaking events. I mean, I was not getting paid. I was brand new to this whole motivational speaking world. And I had been asked to come down and speak at this huge women's conferences. And one of the main keynote speakers was a woman that I had never seen before. I had never heard her name, but I'm going to tell you something. After hearing her speak, I was never the same again. Her name is Linda Wayman, and she was giving a keynote address to about 12,000 women at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Linda. So Linda is a former special education teacher who was teaching in Philadelphia, and as she kind of grew through her career, she went from being a special education teacher up into, working in the superintendent's office and being an assistant superintendent. And there was this school in the district called Strawberry Mansion, and it was considered one of the most dangerous failing schools in the entire state of Pennsylvania. In fact, this school had gone through 4 principals in 4 years. Like, just wrap your brain around that. The school was so tough that a principal would come in, be there for a year, I'm out. Next principal, I'm out. Next principal, I'm out. Next principal, I'm out. I mean, just think about the message that sends in and of itself to the teachers and to the students that are in this school. And so nobody would take the job. So Linda volunteered, and she stepped in as principal. And she was telling the story about how she turned that school around and about her philosophy of leadership and her philosophy of hope. And what she said is that the biggest thing that is missing for students who struggle with disadvantage is hope. That students, any students, even students at the most dangerous, failing schools, they are capable of achieving. They are capable of learning, and they are capable of greatness. And I'm here to tell you the same is true with adults. I don't care what the circumstances are of your life. I don't care what you're dealing with right now. You are capable of achieving. You are capable of learning, and you are capable of greatness. And I hope that when you listen to this podcast, you are reminded of that fact, because it is true. And as she's telling her story and she's talking about her philosophy of hope and of being the person that holds out the possibility and the potential that is inside you, that her belief is something that you can borrow from. Her belief in you is something that she wants to communicate. So she's up here telling the story, and it's almost like listening to a sermon. You know, when somebody speaks like that and there's just a rhythm to their voice and you're just like, yes, yes, we are capable of achieving. Absolutely everybody has potential inside them. Yes, yes, yes. And she goes on to talk about this ritual that she had of how she ended every single day. Now, mind you, this was like a decade ago. I don't know if schools have this anymore, but there was a PA system where you could make an announcement over the loudspeakers in every single one of the classrooms and in the hallways. And she would end every day by picking up the microphone and using that microphone as her pulpit. And this is what she would say at the end of every school day.
If nobody told you they loved you today, you remember I do, and I always will.
And then she added, and I expect to see you back here bright and early, dressed in your uniform, ready to learn. And she meant it. She meant it. For her, love is the belief in you. Love is when you believe in somebody and you believe in their potential. And because she believes that everyone has potential, that's why she can say, I love you. And when she explained this, that she would stand in the principal's office with that microphone in her hand, and she would tell each and every one of those students in the state's most dangerous and failing school, if no one told you they loved you today, remember, I do, and I always will. It was as if God was talking to me. Like lightning struck. I had such a powerful epiphany as I listened to her. Because I thought to myself, that is what love is. I mean, what else would it be? But truly seeing and believing in the potential of somebody else. And that love, by the way, it made an incredible difference. She has now transformed 3 low-performing schools. In fact, one of her schools, before she stepped in and started sending this message of love to each and every person every day, ending the school day, before she stepped in, only 3% of the students were proficient in math. Only 9% of the students were proficient in reading. By the time she was done spreading this gospel of hope and of love and of potential and of belief in you, 94% of the seniors were accepted to college. So, as you might imagine, everybody on the planet wanted to know her secret. How did you do this? How did you turn around 3 bottom-of-the-barrel dangerous schools and literally tap into the potential of all these children? Here's what she said.
If someone asked me my real secret, I would have to say that I love my students and I believe in their possibilities unconditionally. When I look at them, I can only see what they can become.
I'm telling you, that's powerful stuff right there. That is the secret. That's the secret, honestly, for every human being in terms of how do you connect more deeply? How do you unlock the potential in people? You have to love them. You have to believe in their possibilities unconditionally. You got to be able to look at somebody and say, I get it. It's really hard. I see what miserable circumstances you're dealing with. And you want to know what? I can see what you can become. I can see the greatness inside you. I can see that you are bigger than this moment. That is what she's saying when she says, I love you and I believe in you. And you know what else she's doing? She's tapping into extraordinarily important research that you need to know. So there is this study that was done by Harvard's National Scientific Council on the developing child. And here is the takeaway. And I think this goes way beyond just what children need. Every child who winds up doing well has had at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive adult. And you hear that and you're like, well, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Why? Well, because if you have a coach or a pastor or a mentor or an older brother or sister or a person in your community or a caregiver or a grandparent that believes in you, that is loving to you, and that sees the potential in you, that impacts you forever. And when you don't have that, that can impact you forever. And if I extrapolate that to the work environment, the research bears the same thing. That the single biggest indicator that somebody is going to fail at a job or leave a job is the belief that nobody in a position of power at work believes in me. So why even bother? Each and every one of us comes alive when we feel loved and when we feel that somebody sees the possibility inside of us. Hearing her story, it just inspired me at such a deep level. And it made me start to question, why are we so stingy with love? Why are we not telling more people in our life that we love them? I mean, it feels so good, doesn't it? When somebody tells you. Is it amazing when you're in a situation where somebody tells you that they believe in you, that they know you're going to get through something, that they give you hope when you start beating yourself up? Of course it feels amazing. And you want to know the simple formula for experiencing anything in your life that you want to feel more of? Give it. Be more generous with it. When you start to give away the things that you really want, it comes back to you 100-fold. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So as I started to be more generous with the I love yous and the hugs and the I believes in yous, I started telling my family. I told aunts and uncles and cousins and friends. And then I started incorporating it into my day-to-day life with people I'd never met before. And I'm going to give you all kinds of examples. And that, of course, led me, inspired by Linda, when I launched this podcast and I started writing my newsletter, to make sure that I ended each and every conversation by telling you, in case nobody else tells you today, I wanted to be sure that I told you that I love you and I believe in you and your ability to create a better life. And you better believe I mean it. So maybe we should talk about love. What is it anyway? Like, stop and think right now about your own life. Who are the people in your life that you love? Just take a minute and think about it. I'm sure you're kind of listing off family members, right? Maybe there's a friend or two. Maybe it's your partner or your roommates or some classmates. Maybe it's one of your pets. What if it were a whole lot bigger? What if that list could include anybody? If you look at the dictionary, love is described as a feeling of affection. But in my book, that's not what love is. Because I believe that love is something that's way bigger. And that it's something that you demonstrate to people when they matter to you. That's what I believe love is. So I think it's a way of demonstrating to someone that they matter to you. Or as the Dalai Lama said, love can be defined as just a wish that others be happy. When your life blows up and you find yourself in the ocean with like pieces of the boat all around, look for a fucking life preserver or a raft, okay? So I want to applaud you for doing what needed to be done when the you-know-what hit the fan. That same instinct is what is going to make you successful. The second thing that I want to tell you is once you get a hold of that life raft, you want to grab something else that floats, right? And get yourself out of that water. And so I am glad to hear that you're looking for a job. Yeah. And what I would recommend is I would recommend not pretending about the situation that you're in. There is no shame in going to a job interview and at the end of it saying, and I'm asking you for this job. And the reason why I'm asking you for this job is not only because I am going to be incredible at it and you're never going to regret it, but I actually need it. I'm in a really tight jam. I had a life crisis happen. I never thought at the age of 55 I'd be in this situation, and I need the work and I want the work, which means I'm going to show up here every single day and I am going to work the heck out of this job. I've never wanted a job more than I want a job right now. And you should tell your friends that this is what you're going through and that you need help and that you need a recommendation or you need a place to stay. And you should not do what I did. which was hide what was going on because I was so ashamed. And, I'm also going to tell you, it will take time. 5 years ago, I still had the liens on this house. 5 years ago, guys. And so it will take time for you to climb out of this, but you will climb out of this. When you're in a shitstorm and when the lights go out in your life and things feel really dark and really heavy, there has always been one thing that helps me get through those moments. And it's reminding myself that this moment, like every painful moment of my life, was temporary. It passed. And when you can keep telling yourself this moment it's going to pass and it's leading me somewhere, when you can trust in that, you create your own light in that dark tunnel. And it allows you to look up. And one of the things about learning something new, like how to make money online, is that it acts like a beacon for where you're freaking going.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the power boat that gets you there right now.
I know.
Because you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you need to find another freaking life jacket, which means you need to get a job. Which
I
means
know.
you need to just keep going on these interviews. And there's no need, if you've gone on all these interviews and people are like, you're amazing, and then you don't get it, and you think it's because you're too old or you're too desperate, they say you're a consultant. Right. There's no shame in writing back and saying, I'm not sure if you filled the position, but I didn't mention that I actually need a job.
Right.
My pride got in the way. And so if you haven't filled that position, or maybe you are looking for more people, I want to make sure I'm not looking to be a consultant. I've never wanted to find a great job more than ever than this moment. There's no shame in that. What's the worst they're going to say? Yeah, we filled the job.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I've been really even just struggling to even get interviews too. And it's just a funny thing, and it's like, I did have a really great.
What did you do before?
Well, I have I was sort of a rock star visual researcher with directors, back in the day. And I took an odyssey out of that when I had my kid and went to Europe, and I had a company doing that. And recently hooked up with my old team through B School. We're starting a Pinterest collective. So I'm reactivating this whole visual research space.
Great. Let me tell you what you could do tomorrow.
Yeah.
Project management.
I don't know, girl. I'm like the worst project manager.
Bullshit. You can't manage your own life. You can manage somebody else's project.
Maybe.
1,000%. 1,000%. Do not look for a job in what you used to do.
Okay.
Look for a job managing projects in any kind of company, because you just need structure and a place to go every day and a paycheck. That's like the rows on the boat rowing you ahead.
Yeah.
And you're scrappy enough, I can tell, that you'll get annoyed with that job. And then you'll start hustling even more than you are. And you'll giddy up in the other things. But you need the structure. You need to get out of the house. You need a simple paycheck. You need to do that routine for a couple months. I am telling you, it is the best job market in 4 years. I don't give a shit how old you are.
No, I love hearing that. And I get so frustrated by that because it's like you're
looking for the wrong kind of job. You're trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. I mean,
you have skills. Stop looking at industries. You have skills. You can manage things. The woman that I just hired, who's going to come on board as my executive assistant, organize Mel, she was a graphic designer. She worked in a branding agency. She had a dog walking. She's never been an executive assistant. Why? Right. Because I just need somebody who can organize shit, who's an adult that I trust, who's not going to steal from me. That's what I need. And who can boss me around.
Right. Yeah, I do. I understand it. I do think I do have the adult quality, and
of course,
I definitely I'm a pro. I mean, I honestly though, Mel, I would ruin your flights. I'm the worst. I'm not a project administrative.
Then don't take that kind of job. You're not hearing me. You have skills that you can market. Do not look for a visual organizer, needle in the haystack job. Forget that. Get your skills at the top of your resume. LinkedIn has an entire learning platform, and there is so much on there about marketing skills. That's what people are hiring right now. It's not about the industry.
Yeah, I do see that. Like I have like 8 recruiters working for me that can't place me because it's like, I'm an email marketer. Everything is like one skill kind of, like parsed out. And like, but
trust me, look for project management, account services, anything, honestly.
Okay.
That's just what you need. You need something. At this point, don't be picky. Just
I'm not picky.
a job.
I just feel like I don't get any traction with it. It's weird. Like it's just a weird, I'm not.
Okay. So let me tell you something else. You ready?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you don't like the advice, which means it's exactly what you need to do.
I don't know. I'm open to doing anything, but I just wish I was good at that. I've worked with project managers and I value them.
Well, then don't be a project manager. You're missing the point.
Okay.
If you're working with recruiters, they're not going to place you in a job that's general.
Right.
80% of jobs are not even marketed. They are filled by referral.
Right.
You need to be talking to your friends. You need to be looking at the job boards on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you need to be lowering your standards because you are in a lifeboat right now.
Right.
That's what you need to do.
Okay.
And as you lower your standards on the job front, and as you start rowing in a direction, because you now have a paycheck, you're able to get out of your ex-husband's apartment every day. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest about where you're at. And you have a rhythm to your week. That structure from that job is going to give you what you need to get going in a different direction.
Yeah.
You can't organize your thoughts because you're all over the place because you're in an emergency. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I want to tell you is you are capable of figuring this out. And you will get a job. And you will launch a new business. And you will make these things happen. And you will look back on this moment. And you will see exactly why this happened and how it helped you get somewhere awesome.
I believe that.
Excellent. Then
I totally believe
that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thanks, Mel.
You're welcome. Being tough because I want to see you pull yourself up out of this. Why has it been tough? You really love her. You're getting on a plane and you're going to go see her.
Yeah, I love her a bunch.
Okay.
So I guess I'm kind of coming to the realization that I haven't been hearing her properly, connecting with her on the level that I should be. And now trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So a couple months ago, we've been having counseling. And,
that's good. My husband and I go to counseling.
It helps. He was doing it before, and then it kind of became the group, and then now I kind of see a little bit on my own. So I'm recognizing these things, but I also know like a couple of months ago in counseling, she admitted on her last tour that she had emotionally connected with somebody else. So obviously that put a big fire under my ass.
Yeah.
And supposedly
it's scary.
Supposedly I handled it really well, so she's wanting to do all this. She's worked a lot on herself for kind of getting to the point where she's at. Yeah. She's got a spot on the bookshelf that's 12, 15 composition books deep of just thoughts ever since she was back, I think she said, to like 12.
Amazing.
So because of some things that happened to her before that age of being taken
Attention
advantage
inside,
of.
this is Spirit Flight
So
280
she's had
services to
to do a
Pittsburgh
lot of
at
that.
gate 17. This is serving as the final boarding class. The
But
doors are
him-
closing in about 3 minutes and they will
In
not
doing
reopen.
this,
You
you
make your way to
realize
gate
how much you need to
17 for
work on
on-time departure
yourself.
to
Scary.
Pittsburgh. Thank you.
And then a lot of regrets come up, and a lot of things you wish you could do over, and then you start to realize there's shit from your past that really messed with you, that you shoved down,
Yeah.
that happened when you were a kid. This is, I think, the cycle that we all hit in adulthood. And here's the amazing opportunity. You not only have an amazing opportunity to change the person that you are and to change the relationship that you have with your wife, but you have an amazing opportunity to change the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
Because your thoughts, your feelings, they actually matter too. And you can't get...
I've been neglected.
Yes. See, relationships are amplifiers. You go into a relationship and you're not right with yourself, that relationship just magnifies what's missing. What did you just get from that?
I like that. Well, it's going to expose those demons more.
Yeah. And here's the thing that most men, at least in a traditional gender sense, don't understand. That it takes tremendous strength to be vulnerable. It takes tremendous strength to talk about the shit that's bothering you.
Yeah.
It takes tremendous strength to admit that you're wrong and to be scared. And that's actually what makes you connect more deeply to your partner. My husband of 25 years failed miserably in the restaurant business. Nearly bankrupted us. Lost it all. When he left the business, he was an alcoholic and completely lost and demoralized. And I did not know until recently, because it was through these rock bottom moments that my career took off. I invented this little thing called the 5-second rule that I used to get out of bed when the anxiety was so crushing. The only thing that would help me escape it was drinking myself into oblivion to numb it all out. And I started using this little brain hack to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shut down the noise in my brain and launch myself forward through the fear, through the pain, through all of it. And my whole life turned around. Chris's life turned around. But I did not know until recently, when we've been in couples therapy, that the man has, for the last 8 years, just been beating the hell out of himself because he feels like he failed. He feels like he wasn't there for me. He feels like he didn't do his job providing.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And then when your spouse starts to get successful and they start to find themselves, it gets very confronting. And so what I want to tell you is that the opportunity to connect with her is through being open and through being vulnerable. Like, go toward that shit. I'm proud of you.
I've been doing it, as you see.
I can see that. I can see that. I can see that. And you gotta learn how to love yourself, regardless of what happened, regardless of what you did or didn't do, regardless of all that. You gotta learn how to look in the mirror and see a man who is worth rooting for and who is worthy of love. It is not too late to change this. It is not too late to change your life. It's not too late to change your marriage. But it's an inside-out job. You start to show yourself some kindness and some love. And you start sharing more of the stuff that's coming up for you. And that is the path that's going to actually heal you. And it's going to
stop.
Yes.
Yeah. So to speak. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just need my mojo back. I think that's what she met in me. I had a nice swagger and everything, but it's gotten diluted or
By life?
I think so. Maybe my own just being stagnant. And
That's it.
Accepting instead of keep pushing.
You know, my good friend Joel Marin, who you should follow, just sent me a freaking thing that he wrote today. Oh my God, Joel! Praise you, Joel. Joel, I cannot believe this. Joel Marin, I'll give you his name. He literally wrote me this whole thing that he wrote today that you need to hear.
Very shortly will not reopen. This is your
Wait till I'm going to find out. Marion. He wrote me this whole thing about the fact that when we are born, we have incredible potential, but so few of us realize what we're capable of. And he uses this analogy. This is in your DNA. You were created to be a Lamborghini in life. You have literally everything inside you to be able to perform like that Lambo. You're manufactured that way. That engine, 729 horsepower engine, is in there. That insane torque. You have unbelievable intrinsic ability to go from 0 to 65 miles per hour in under 3 seconds. But for most of us, we never experience close to those numbers that we were created to perform at. And so he tells a story about how he was test driving one, but the neighborhood he's in has like 35 mile per hour speed limit.
Okay.
He ended up not buying it because he never experienced the potential.
Right.
What you're talking about is you're talking about the fact that you actually know there is that inside of you. And when you lose your capacity that you were built in, and you stop growing, and you stop stretching yourself, and you stop pushing yourself forward and learning new stuff and expressing yourself, something inside you starts to feel like it's dying.
Yeah.
And so I'm telling you,
that engine.
yes, it's still there. And the reason why it's still there is because you miss it. And you can only miss something you know.
Okay.
So I think Joel sent me that for a reason. In times of my life when I felt lost or stagnant, I say I feel like a racehorse tied to a pony ride at a kid's birthday party. Like I am built to fucking run.
Yeah.
And I hate it when I feel like just tied down like that.
Yeah.
And so there is something inside you that you've been holding back. What do you think it is?
Not really sure.
Well, I would take on a challenge.
I'm not sure if it's a passion that I've ever tapped into or something that I've missed since, earlier years.
Who knows? I think you should take on a challenge. I think you should take on climbing some mountain or some kind of race or some like fitness thing, something that's a little out of your comfort zone to give you something to push you. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. Just something that you're up to is enough.
Yeah.
But I want to acknowledge you for the fact that you recognize that there's an issue and you're taking the steps to go make the effort. You're getting on a plane, you're flying to surprise your wife.
Not only that, but I deal with motion sickness, vertigo, and
Awesome.
and I don't drive well at night. So I've got the bands on.
Great, they work.
I took my motion sickness pills.
I love that. I give you a high five for that. That's fantastic.
We're doing what we can.
You're doing it. Then does she know you? She doesn't know you're coming.
She does now.
Oh, good.
She didn't a couple days ago, but then we were trying to do the pregnancy reveal to some of the family because we just found out last week.
Congratulations!
So she was all like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. You're there, I'm here, and I want to video chat my family and be able to like tell them because she's up where some of the family is and she was seeing some of them were coming to visit. So I told her, I'll tell you what, well, I'm actually coming up there. So she was pretty surprised, but
That's awesome. You're going to be an awesome dad. You want to know who the best dads are?
Yeah.
The ones who are actually right with themselves.
That's true.
The ones who are able to talk about their emotions. The ones who are able to be human.
This is my second child. This is her first, but I told them, my son's almost 23.
That's amazing.
So to start over is it's been a lot of emotion.
You're not going to start over. You actually are building upon. Okay.
And my son's been great. He's guys would be super impressed with how good my son is. He hasn't seen his mom since he was 6 years old, so I kind of raised him on my own. I mean, there's people in and out of the life, but yeah.
You got a moment in your life to make yourself really proud of yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And if I were a betting woman, some days I am, depends how much liquor I have, I'd place my bet on you.
That's what I'd like. I want that more than anything.
Don't wish for it, don't want it.
And my wife deserves it.
Do the work. No, hold on.
What? Go ahead.
You deserve it.
I deserve it. Okay.
Give yourself what you're seeking from other people. Seek redemption and forgiveness because you deserve it from yourself. And in my book, forgiveness means that you have stopped wishing things could be different. Accept everything that's happened or didn't happen as a lesson. And as long as you hold on to that shit from the past, you're actually still there.
Yeah. Okay.
What'd you get out of this?
I got a little more resiliency, a little pick-me-up, and I'm glad I came and talked to you very much and took the time. I wasn't sure if I was imposing because I didn't know if it was more like a female thing, but I have plenty of emotion that I'm pretty open with. Sometimes too open, maybe. I don't
think so. I'm also going to introduce you to my husband. So he created a men's group a men's retreat called Soul Degree, where he takes guys out into the woods for 5 days to actually have these kinds of conversations. And he's had guys from 22 to 60 plus, multiple tours of duty, professional athletes, regular, just everyday folks like all of us. And it's remarkable. And what he also does, because he only does these a couple times a year, is he also has calls every month where it's guys get on and he leads a meditation, and then there's a topic that y'all discuss, and it's really freaking cool. And so I will make sure that you have his information, and I will get both of your email addresses, and I will have my team email you a credit so you can listen to one of my books on Audible.
That's cool. I've been doing a lot more trying to listen to stuff, and you know, you just don't know what direction to go because some stuff is just, some people just want to make some money on you, and you know, there's so much out there. You just want to find the right path.
Yeah.
As best as possible.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It's your friend Mel. I told you I would be waiting for you. We're going to start with a definition of motivation because I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page when we're using the word. Now, from a scientific standpoint, motivation is the general desire or willingness to act in a certain way. Another way that you may hear people define motivation in the context of kind of science and research is motivation is often used to describe this force that explains why you would initiate something or why you would continue with something or why you would quit something. That's an interesting thing, that you have a motivation to quit something. Of course you do. That's the force that makes you take the action to quit. It's motivating you. And since you listen to the Mel Robbins podcast, you know I like to simplify things. So I have just this very plain spoken definition that I use that takes into account all the science and research. And here's my definition of motivation. And this is what I want you and I to use as we're having this conversation. Motivation just means you feel like doing something. That's it. Motivation means you feel like doing something. And that means a lack of motivation means you don't feel like doing something. Simple, right? And that's what's interesting about motivation. When you feel like doing something, it's easy to do, right? Because you're motivated. You feel like doing it. And if you Googled motivation, or you've listened to podcasts on the topics, or you've read about the science of it, I know that you have bumped into the word dopamine. So let me talk about dopamine in the context of self-motivation, okay? Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter and hormone. And dopamine is involved in so many different aspects of your body functioning. But when you talk about dopamine in the context of motivation, what researchers, neuroscientists, psychologists, everybody is talking about is the fact that dopamine plays a role in what's called the reward system in your mind. That's why dopamine is often referred to as the molecule of motivation. And when you are listening to anybody or reading about topics like behavior chain, habits, in our case, the science of motivation, it's really important to understand the role that dopamine plays, because I think there's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding about what dopamine is and the role that it plays. And a lot of people feel like, oh, dopamine is what makes me motivated. If you could just put dopamine in a pill, I'd feel more motivated. Somehow that dopamine is sort of like that motivation on tap. That's not technically the case, because dopamine is tied to cravings and to things that you want. Dopamine is present to try to drive you toward things that you crave or toward things that you really want to do. And I'm going to give you a couple examples, because once you wrap your brain around this, oh my gosh, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I totally get this. So let's just take a scenario. You've been at work all day. You had an early lunch. You've been in meetings all day. As you're driving home, you're hungry, right? Now, when you get home because you're hungry, you're going to be very motivated to open the fridge, to look inside, and to figure out what to eat or cook yourself for dinner, right? Why? Because you're craving food. You're hungry. But have you ever noticed that you can be really motivated when you get home to make something to eat and to eat real quick, but the second you're done eating, it is so hard to motivate yourself to clean up the kitchen and to do the dishes. Why? Dopamine. See, you came home hungry. You were craving food, which is why you were motivated to cook. You felt like doing it. Dopamine is present because it's tied to craving and to the thing that you wanted. And in fact, this is kind of cool research. Let's say that you really love steak. And if you're coming home and you're craving steak, do you know how motivated you are to turn on the grill so you can grill that filet? In fact, your mouth is just watering thinking about it. Talk about the molecule of motivation. My mouth is watering just talking to you about it. That's how much I like steak. And the research shows that foods that you like spike dopamine levels by 50%. Why? Well, because you both crave it and you want it. That's why you're motivated to cook it. And this is true with all things that you crave or things that you really, really like. And these are not necessarily good things that I'm going to list, but do you want to know the top things that spike dopamine levels? It's not pretty. Meth, cocaine, nicotine, sex, social media, video games, sugar. See, people get motivated to find these things because they crave them. You want to know what's not on that list? College applications, updating your resume, putting up a dating profile, stepping on a scale, doing dishes. I mean, who on earth craves sticking your hands in a soapy sink with a bunch of greasy pans? Not me. That's why you never feel motivated to do it. And look, there are so many people out there that are experts at biohacking dopamine. That's not what we're talking about today. You and I are talking about the reality in a normal person's life, which is, do not expect this molecule of motivation to rescue you in a situation where you feel down, you feel discouraged, you don't feel like doing what you need to do. It's not coming. And yet you still need to pick yourself up and force yourself to do the work. And just like motivation, dopamine is wonderful when you have it. But this conversation is about the other situations, the 99% of your life when you don't feel like doing what you need to do. I don't feel like applying to college after I got rejected. I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like working on my business plan. I don't feel like eating healthy when I'd rather have a pizza. I don't feel like putting myself out there because I'm shy and introverted and I got screwed over by the last person I did. I don't feel like cleaning out the garage. I don't feel like having a mocktail when I'd rather have a beer tonight. I don't feel like having that conversation with my mother. I've been avoiding it for 3 months, so why not avoid it another one? And notice, when you don't feel like doing those things, you don't do them, do you? That's why you'll often hear me say, motivation is garbage. It's garbage because it's not there when you really need it. If motivation were on demand, if it were on tap, if we could just, pop a pill, I would pour that sucker into a cup, man. I would drink it every day. And you want to know what else? If motivation were easy, everybody would have $1 million in the bank. Everybody would have 6-pack abs. Everybody would be having the side hustle of their dreams and taking vacations because they would be motivated all the time to do all the things that get you those things. But that's not how life works, is it? Because knowing what you need to do, it's not enough. It's just not enough. And here's the issue, and I know it, because the clock is ticking. Waiting for motivation to strike is basically saying it's never going to happen. And if you're in a situation like we are in this household, you got 11 days. You got 11 days. You cannot afford to let your feelings derail the actions that you need to take right now. And one more point about this. I personally am highly motivated to see our son push through the feelings of rejection and put in the work so that he is proud of himself, so that he knows that he put his best foot forward, that he didn't let this one school stop him. But I can't do the work for him. I can't just spray him with motivation. In fact, the more pressure I put on him, the more demoralized he's going to feel. He knows what the game's about. He knows what the stakes are. He knows what he's up against. But here's what I'm offering. Even though you can't do the work for somebody else, and even though you technically can't motivate someone else, you can't feel it more than they want to feel like doing it, there are things you can do to help someone tap back into the drive inside themselves in a moment like this. And these 2 steps are also what you need to do in moments where you're the one who needs the motivation. Step number 1, you must remind yourself of why this matters to you. Let's say that again. Step number 1, you must remind yourself of why this matters to you. This is one of the most important hacks for self-motivation, and that is understanding exactly what you want and exactly why you want it. Because number 1, if you don't really want it, you're not going to feel motivated to do the work to get it. And if you don't know why you want it, you're not going to feel motivated to do the work to get it. And I'm going to keep coming back to this example because it's so relatable, our son and these college applications. So after he got the news, we just let him go for a day or 2, right? You got to be able to decompress. You got to be able to take a deep breath. And then we sat down with him and we had a conversation about all the options on the table, starting with, do you even want to go to college next year? Do you want to take a gap year? Do you want to do something else? Do you want to get a job? All the way to the other end, which is just because that school rejected you doesn't mean you can't get into another top tier school if that's what you actually want. And that's important. You can't want it because I want it. And I don't even want that for him. I want him to go to the place he wants to be. And I reminded him of this. There are so many amazing schools out there that you could not only get into, but you probably love and be really happy at. So why not put in a couple applications to schools like that so you have options? So we talked and talked and talked through all the options. Don't go at all, apply to top schools, apply to schools in the middle. And here's what he said. You know, if I didn't put in a few more applications to some other top choices of mine, all of which are a real reach for me, I realize that. I know in my heart that I wouldn't have given it my all. And I guess, Mom, if they reject me too, then you know what? It's going to make me feel better at where I ultimately end up. I love that. I love that because number 1, he's getting in touch with what he wants. And number 2, it really tracks back to something that you and I talk about all the time. That dreams and your goals, they are there for a reason, and they're not necessarily there because you're supposed to achieve them. Dreams set a direction that you head in. Dreams are what you pursue in order for you to become the kind of person that you want to become. See, these dreams and goals that you have, these reaches that you go for, they force you to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And that's exactly what our son was talking about. He knows that by buckling down right now, at the moment where he least wants to do this, this is the last thing that he wants to do. But by doing it and going for it, He is demonstrating something that he cares in terms of his character. That's why he wants to apply. He's not doing it to get into a school. He's applying because that's the kind of person he knows that he wants to be. And I want you to think, like, where in your life have you gone for something simply because you knew pursuing it would cause you to become a better version of yourself? And so let's circle this back and highlight step one, which is you have to know why you want something. And let's talk about you. Let's talk about your why. Whether you're listening to me right now and you're picking yourself back up, or you're cranking along, you got some big goal and you would just love to destroy it this year. I mean, let's level up, let's amplify, let's swing for the fences, people. You want to tap into that like self-motivation to really rocket ship this puppy. What is it that you want? What is it that you're working on? And why do you want it? Why? And as you ponder that, I want to remind you that I can help you answer this. I created this incredible workbook that is free, zero cost. It's my gift to you to help you gain clarity about what you want and why you want it, which is essential if you want to tap into self-motivation. It is 29 amazing pages long. You can hear me flipping through it right now. And already hundreds of thousands of podcast listeners from around the world have downloaded this puppy. They love it. They love the tools in it. This is a resource for you, and you can get it right now at melrobbins.com/bestyear. Please share it with your friends. Share it with your families. And this workbook is going to help you with step one. What do I want? Why do I want it? Because the workbook begins with 6 clarifying questions that give you those answers. And this is so important. And it's not just me saying it. It's not just common sense. There is breakthrough research that comes from the University of Oregon that has shown that you have to know your why in order to achieve your goals. Knowing your why matters. And based on the research, it's because when you know why something matters to you, it helps you with self-regulation. It helps you prioritize doing the work over other things that are not as important but are easier to do. And this is essential because if you know that something matters, you'll come home after ski practice instead of taking a few extra runs with your friends, and you'll work on college applications because you know why it matters. You'll get out of bed a little bit earlier to chip away at your resume instead of sleeping in this weekend because you'll know why it matters. And so this is grounded in the research. And we talked about this extensively in a recent episode that I did on goals. In fact, I released it just a week ago if you want to dive in deeper. A couple days ago, we flew from Nashville to Chicago. And when we got to the airport, the gentleman who was picking us up at the airport and driving us to the hotel was named Ernest. And when we got off the plane and, found his car, and he had the biggest smile and just radiated positive energy. You know people like this? That it's just hard to be in a bad mood around someone like that. They fight you on it with their energy. It's almost like they're a Jedi Knight, like with their positive, just life force energy is what I call it. And so he's standing there with a big old smile. And even though this has been a really long stretch of work travel, and even though I have been, like you, so overwhelmed and sad and horrified by the news that is dominating the headlines right now, there was something about his spirit that just lifted us all up. And so we're driving into Chicago, and he's at the wheel, and I'm in the back of the car, and we're just chatting up a storm. And in addition to his positive energy, Ernest has one of those voices. These like deep, soulful, smooth voices. So smooth, it was as if it was liquid butterscotch. And I'm just soaking up every word. And if that's not enough, he also spoke in poetry. The kind of person that can just string together a sentence and you find yourself closing your eyes and just nodding along as he is dropping just one beautiful truth bomb after another. And all of a sudden, I got this feeling inside me, and I thought, I wonder if Ernest is a minister. And so I said, Ernest, any chance you're a minister? And he just, just started laughing like, you got me, Mel, you got me. Yes, I'm a minister. Yes, I'm a minister. And then he went on to explain that, in his opinion, the difference between a pastor and a minister is that a pastor is somebody who is responsible for a church and for the congregation of the church. But a minister is a person who spreads light and spreads positive energy, who ministers by lifting people up. Now, we were not talking about any kind of particular religion. We were just talking about spreading light, positive energy, lifting people up. And so I said to Ernest, Ernest, I am here in town because I have to give a speech tomorrow morning. And I believe that when I am standing on that stage and I'm looking out into that audience, I am spreading light. I am showing people a different way to look at the situation that they're in or the things that they want in life, that I too am in the business of positive energy and lifting people up. And it would be an honor to have you come and to have you experience me doing what I do, because I've been experiencing what you do. And he said yes. He said yes. And it was one of those moments where I just love when you say to yourself, I am sitting right here with this person for a reason. And as we got closer and closer to downtown Chicago, and as Ernest kept on ministering to the three of us in his car, as he was spreading his light and talking all kinds of positivity, I sat there and thought to myself, I am supposed to be sitting here. And he is supposed to be in the driver's seat, and we are supposed to meet. It is just one of those moments. And I want to open you up to a really important idea. That sometimes the light or the connection or the support or the love that you need, it's not going to come from the people you know. Rather, the universe will put a stranger in your path to give you exactly what you need in that moment, even though you didn't know you needed it. And what I didn't know is I had gotten off that plane in Chicago feeling exhausted by my work schedule and feeling so heartbroken over the news right now. I didn't realize how much I needed a little light. And I want you to remain open to the fact that there are going to be strangers that cross your path today, this week, this month, this year, that can give you the connection, the love, the light, the support, the help, whatever it is that you need, without you even realizing it. And you are also that stranger for somebody else. That you can, without even realizing that you're doing it, because Ernest did not step in that driver's seat and go, I'm just going to lift these women up. He was just being earnest. He was just shining his light. And the interesting thing about strangers is, think about this. Absolutely everybody that you love was once a stranger to you. And all it takes to turn a stranger into a friend, or to somebody who supports you, or to the love of your life, is taking a moment to connect with the light in one another. And so Ernest did come, and he was so cute. He arrived bright and early, and I was so proud to have him there. And we sat him right up front in the audience of thousands of people next to our, corporate client, and he just soaked it in. And then when it was over, we had some time in what they call the back of the house, behind, the front of the house at a hotel. We were standing back there, and I said, so, Ernest, what did you think? What did you think? And he said some of the most beautiful things to me. He said, Mel, it was so amazing to sit there and watch you do what you do. And there is no doubt that you are a minister. In fact, everybody, Mel, is a minister, because everybody has the power to spread light and positive energy. Everybody has the power to lift people up. But as you were standing on that stage and you were pouring your heart into every single person there, did you notice? Thousands of people. And every single person was quiet as a church mouse. They were reflecting. They were considering what you were saying. And I want you to know, Mel, it was so much more than positive energy. Because what you do is you make a way out of no way. You are reminding people of their power. You're reminding them of what they really want out of life, that they don't want to be stuck, that they want to feel more. And then he said this. He said, Mel, do you know what you are? And I said, no. He said, you're a lighthouse. And when he said that word, lighthouse, it immediately brought me back to a really incredible childhood memory. I mean, lighthouses hold a lot of importance for me. I grew up in Western Michigan, in a tiny little town right on the shores of Lake Michigan. And if you don't know the Great Lakes, if you're listening in one of the 194 countries where this show is syndicated around the world, and you've never seen the Great Lakes, they're just like an ocean. Like, you cannot see across them. They are huge, huge waves. They are enormous. And so I grew up in a tiny little town that was surrounded by lakes that all fed into the Great Lake called Lake Michigan. And one of my dad's favorite things to do on the weekends, if he wasn't on call and he didn't have to work, was to get up really early and jump in the boat and drive out from the little lake we lived on, through the channel, into the bigger lake, Muskegon Lake, and then out the big channel, Muskegon Lake, and out into the wide, open, and vast Lake Michigan. And what he loved to do is he loved to fish for steelhead. And I would often go with him. Now, here's the thing. Being a little bit of a worrywart as a kid, I was deathly afraid that we would get out there to the big, open, vast ocean like Lake Michigan, and we would be swept away. Like, I had a really active imagination, so my dad would be having the time of his life with a cigar in his mouth, and he's got all kinds of lures in the water, and he's fishing the steelhead run, and my mind would be a spinning. What if the engine doesn't start? What if a storm rolls over? What if one of those big dark thunderstorms comes in and the all of a sudden the wind picks up and the waves start going and the boat gets flipped over and Dad and I find ourselves lost at sea? And there would be times that my dad would try to start the engine up after we'd been out there for a while, way offshore, and it would go and then it wouldn't start. And then I'd start to panic, and my dad would be like, would you calm down? Just calm down. And then he would say, Mel, we are not going to get lost. Just look. And he'd turn around, he'd point at the shoreline, and there off in the distance was the lighthouse. And the lighthouse that was on Muskegon Channel is a lighthouse called Muskegon South Pierhead Lighthouse. And what my dad would say is, he said, Mel, that lighthouse is always there. And that lighthouse is there so you don't get lost. See, it doesn't matter, Mel, how foggy it is or how dark it's going to get or if a storm blows in. We're going to be fine because the lighthouse has one job. The lighthouse is always shining its light so that it can bring you home. It lets you know that you're never alone and you're never lost. And when I would look at that lighthouse, even though it was kind of far away, I got to be honest with you, it made me feel a little safer. And it made me feel like my dad and I were not alone out there in that big old Great Lake, Lake Michigan, but that we were connected to somebody who could and who would help. And if you've ever been lost, if you ever had that experience where you've been lost, whether you're driving around and all of a sudden you have to pull over because you don't know where you are, or maybe you're in a new city and you're walking around in circles and you can't find your way, or heck, I remember being a freshman in college and I was so lost at Dartmouth College, like I didn't know where my classroom was. So when you're feeling lost, it's really scary. But then there is that moment when either somebody stops and says, are you lost? Or you say to somebody else, excuse me, I'm a little lost. And the person says to you, you're not lost. I know exactly where you are. And I also know how to get where you're going. And that right there is such an amazing feeling to have someone say to you, you're not lost. I know exactly where you are. and I know how to get you where you want to go. And so today, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about. This feeling that I think is really universal right now, of feeling lost, especially when the world feels like it's very dark. And when you're feeling lost, how can you navigate this? How can you move forward again? And I know that, that's exactly how I felt this week. As I've been watching the news unfold, it feels like a huge, dark storm has blown in, that the fog is here, that we're spinning around. It's scary. And I don't know about you, but whenever I feel like things are really dark or I feel very lost and I'm not sure what to do, I start to feel paralyzed. That's kind of my initial reaction, that I get stuck, I get angry, I feel uncertain, my energy starts to drain from me, I feel so sad. And I'm sharing that with you because if that's how you felt recently, I want you to know you're not alone in feeling that way. And it might not even be that you feel lost. Maybe right now because of what's happening in your personal life or because you live in a part of the world that is in conflict and crisis, that you do feel like you're holding on for dear life, that you are trying not to drown. And I also want you to know, if that's how you feel as you hear my voice or you're watching this video, that you're not alone. There are so many people, unfortunately, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that feel that way right now too. And so today, I'm thinking about our conversation not like this is a podcast episode. I'm thinking about our conversation as me sharing with you how I'm feeling. And what I really want to do, because I've been thinking a lot about this, especially since Ernest and this metaphor of a lighthouse, is I want to speak to the situation that we're in right now. And in particular, I'm going to try to shine a light so bright that I hope it reaches you. Because we can't allow ourselves to get so caught up in the darkness that is in the world around us that we forget to love one another. We cannot forget to appreciate the small things or the moments that we have, even when the world around us feels like it's spiraling in chaos. We can't forget to help someone in need. And we can't forget that we, even if we're just watching this all unfold in the news, that we are just one step away from being the one who needs the help. And if you can hear my words right now, or you can watch this on YouTube, I want you to consider something. Yes, you may feel deeply afraid and you may feel lost, but you're not lost. You have you. You're not alone. You're not by yourself. You're with yourself. And there are so many people around the globe who care about you. And you're also not paralyzed. That's kind of our first response, right? When something scary happens, that we disconnect from ourselves, we disconnect from everybody else, we start to hunker down, we feel stuck, we start to get paralyzed. I am here to shine a light on the fact that there are small things that you can do right now. First, to weather this storm. And second, to start to see yourself and what you can do in a different light. My hope is that by the time you and I are done talking today, that you're not going to feel so stuck, that you're not going to feel so hopeless, but that you will feel reconnected to your strength. And you will feel empowered by some very simple things that you can do right now to help yourself and perhaps help somebody else who needs you. I am going to show up today and be a lighthouse. And I'm going to shine a light so bright because I want to illuminate a path forward for you that will help you navigate this moment. A lighthouse is not actually interested in who gets the light. A lighthouse is blinking in a rotation so that the light is there for all to see. It doesn't select or discriminate which ships get to see it. It shows its light for anyone within its reach. I love that. I absolutely love that because that brings me back to you and to this moment and to the awesome like amazing power that you have. See, when I landed in Chicago, I saw the light inside of Ernest. He was just standing there beaming it for anybody who cared to be basking in it. And that light lifted me up. And then the next morning, Ernest saw the light in me as I was just beaming it out for anybody in that audience who cared to allow it to lighten the way. And you have a light inside of you. What is the light? The light is your humanity. It's your compassion. It's your ability to laugh, to love, to hug somebody, to listen, to care. It's what you feel in your heart. And that's why your heart is breaking right now. Your heart is breaking because you're seeing innocent people that you see suffering due to war or natural disasters or senseless hatred and violence. And I don't know about you, but when I watch the news, I have to remind myself, because it's easy to forget this fact, that these innocent people are victims. They are not their governments. And that's why so many people around the world need your light right now. And I want to talk to you about how you can tap into that light. And I'm also going to share with you some of the things that I am doing that are making me stay connected to my light and keeping me grounded and keeping me in a place where I am not getting sucked into this darkness. I am staying above it so that I can help and so that I can stay connected to my power. See, even when nothing seems to make sense, there's always something that you can do. And what you can do right now is to be a lighthouse for other people, to cast your light into this dark storm for anybody who needs it to see it. And what does that even mean, Mel? Well, let me talk about that for a minute. First of all, whenever I feel really low, I find that the fastest way for me to lift my own spirits is to help somebody else. So in whatever way that you can, try to find ways to help other people, to connect, to volunteer, to serve others. However you can do that, when you lift somebody else up, you are being a lighthouse, and it always does come back to you. Help somebody else out. Find ways to be part of the force for good. I know what you're already thinking. Mel, are you kidding me? I am sad and scared and horrified, and I can barely get out of bed, and I'm mainlining the news. You want me to help other people now? I can barely function myself. Well, here's what I have to say. Well, then helping someone else is exactly what you should do. If you can't help yourself, research has found over and over again that helping somebody else not only feels good, but it does you good. And there are a number of reasons why. First of all, it distracts you from the sorrow, grief, fear, and worries that can become this echo chamber in your own brain that starts to make you feel isolated and paralyzed and stuck and full of despair. And by supporting somebody else in need, there are so many interesting things that happen with your perspective. When you're supporting somebody else, you realize you have more power than you think. I'm talking little stuff. You could run errands for somebody. You could work hotlines. You could check in on friends and family. By supporting somebody else in need, you gain a new perspective about your own situation. And there's something magical that happens when you start giving back, because you realize that you do have more power than you think you do. When you sit alone and you tell yourself there's nothing that you can do, you will start to spiral. You will feel more depressed. And I know you know this is true. I mean, just think about the times that somebody has done something nice for you. In those moments when somebody else helps you, you feel seen. You feel lifted up. And the second thing that I want you to do is to be soft with yourself right now. Because the world's suffering, it is impacting you too. In fact, Dr. Tama Bryant, who's been featured on the last 2 episodes that we published, has this saying that whatever is happening out there is happening in here too. And what she means by that is that you are absorbing the energy and the stress around you. Everybody on the planet right now is impacted by this. And even if you're not vibrating with a lot of stress, people around you are. They are worried. They are watching the news. They may not be able to turn it off. They are worried about loved ones. They're worried about what might happen. And this energy is impacting you. And if you are watching the news, yeah, you can turn that off, but you can't turn it off in your body. And so if you're having a hard time concentrating or falling asleep, or procrastination has ticked up, or you feel like you're on edge, or you're starting to slip into feeling like nothing matters and life is horrible, that is an example of how this is impacting you. And so it is critical that you take steps to take care of yourself right now, because you deserve it. And in order to lift other people up, you got to make sure that you start by lifting yourself up first. And so I thought a lot about this. How am I doing that for myself? And I came up with 5 things that I'm doing right now that are helping me to stop the overwhelm and stop the despair and to stay connected to my light, to the power that I do have, and to a connection to something greater than this very scary moment. And so the first thing is spiritual practices. I am a very spiritual person, but since this news began a week ago, I have really become intentional about making sure it is part of my daily, and sometimes several times a daily, thing that I'm doing. And you know that spiritual practices work. Like, one of the things I'm doing right now is praying. I'm praying for each and every single human being who has lost their lives or their loved ones. I'm praying for people who are in harm's way, who are fearing for their lives. I'm praying for those of you that are struggling right now with anxiety and fear and grief. And I'm praying for compassion. I'm praying for healing. And I'm praying for peace. And you want to know what else I'm praying for? I am praying for our collective light to shine brighter than this terrifying darkness that has rolled into the world right now. Since the beginning of time, spiritual practices have helped people through some of the most tragic experiences. So whether for you that means prayer or meditation or journaling or gathering with other people of a similar faith, or even for me, just taking a walk outside, like getting outside, getting off my phone, taking a walk in the woods. Or here's what I did this morning. I was driving down the road, and I have a friend that I've talked about on this podcast that is a flower farmer. She's the owner of Fleur Farm. And she has all these dahlia fields. And I pulled over because I saw her working in one. And I left my car running. And I just silently walked through the rows in her flower field. And as I walked, I took in each individual flower. And I would stop and look at it. And I would look at the bumblebee that was laying there in the center, all drunk on pollen. And I got lost in the beauty of nature. And I'll tell you what, being able to connect to something greater than this scary moment that's going on in the world, it really helps me. It helps me to stay grounded. It helps me to be calm. And that helps me to show up in a very different way during this moment. And if you're listening to my voice or you're watching this video and you're in a part of the world where you can't get outside, just not an option for you, I want you to try visualizing yourself outside in your favorite place, or visualize yourself with people that you love. If you close your eyes and allow your imagination to take you there, it might just really help. The second thing that I'm doing is I am using the 10-5 rule. Now, this is something I do in my day-to-day life, but I have 10x'd it at this moment. And here's what the 10-5 rule is. It's a simple way to connect with people that you know or that you don't know. And every time I share this, I always get people that write in and say, well, this isn't safe for me to do where I live. If you're comfortable, try this. But it is really fantastic. You can use this in a grocery store. You can use this on a college campus. You can use this at work. You can use this on a sidewalk. You can use this at a stoplight. It's wonderful. And here's how it works. Whenever you're 10 feet away from another human being, just look them in the eyes and smile. That's it. Look them in the eyes and smile. And try to hold the smile and your eye contact for 3 seconds or more, because a funny thing happens when you do that. When you look at somebody else in the eyes and you smile, a big toothy smile, you are signaling to somebody else's mirror neurons in their brain that you are friendly, that you are a safe connection, and somebody else's mirror neurons can't help but then mirror your response. And so if you look at somebody in the eyes and they look back and you smile and you hold that smile for more than 3 seconds, you watch. They'll grin right back because they can't help it. We are wired for connection. Then when you get 5 feet away, smile again and say hello. And the reason why this 10-5 rule is so great is because it's a simple and instant way to connect with somebody. The fact is, we are not strangers when we are all suffering around the globe. And we are all in this right now, even though we show it very, very differently from one another. I do not want us to turn away from one another, because when we do that, we buy into the darkness. I want us to turn toward one another. I want us to lead with our humanity, and I want us to let the light in from one another again. The third thing that I am doing that is helping a lot is advice that I got from Dr. Tama Bryant, where she says there's a big difference between staying informed and not inundating yourself with the news. Because how much time you spend watching the news does not equal how much you care. You can care deeply about what's happening with other people and not watch the news at all. I personally do not watch or listen to the news. I read the news. Why? Because I want to stay informed, but I want to protect my mental health. This is a way I can be soft with myself, remember? Because if I let my mental health tank, and if I let my mood and my mindset and all of that go with it, I'm not going to be able to show up in this moment and navigate it in a different way. And so please, try not to stress yourself out by staring at traumatic imagery to the extent that you can. In fact, my husband and I have also required that all 3 of our kids delete TikTok, because the imagery on that platform right now is way too much for your nervous system and your heart to process. And so please do not look at it. Focus on showing how much you care by your actions rather than the content that you're consuming. It's going to be way better for you, okay? Next, this is the 4th thing that I'm doing that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm reaching out to people. And in particular, I am checking in on my Jewish and my Muslim friends. See, these recent events, they have sent shockwaves through both global communities. Please let your friends know that you care about them, that you're thinking about them. Please let them know that they are not alone in this. And another thing that I love to do is that when I am reaching out to a friend of mine who is really going through something, whether it's this situation that we are witnessing right now, or it's somebody that just lost a loved one or got a scary diagnosis or is dealing with something very traumatic, I always reach out and I check in and I tell them how much I love them. And then I end it with this: you do not need to respond. I just wanted you to know that I'm here and you're not going to go through this alone. And the reason why I love this is because when you reach out to somebody unexpectedly, it feels so good. I mean, think about the times when somebody texts you unexpectedly and you're like, oh my God, that's so nice of them. And when you send the text, you create that light inside somebody else. That's the first gift. The second gift is when you say you don't need to respond. Because if somebody's going through something very traumatic, they do not have the energy to check in with you. And so you give them this beautiful gift when you relieve them of the burden and the guilt of having to and not being able to. And finally, I have been thinking about this metaphor of a lighthouse over and over and over again. And I find it so empowering to think about the role that you can play as an individual in this dark storm. That somehow thinking about shining that light inside of you in a 360 fashion for anyone around you to see or feel, what a gift that is to give other people. And by thinking about that metaphor, it allows me to rise out of the individual emotion or heaviness that I feel so that I can take action and feel like I'm doing something. And the ways that I do that is when I see despair, I respond with hope. When I see sorrow, I respond with love. I'm meeting agitation with kindness. And I'm inviting you to do the same. Do not get pulled into the darkness. As I said earlier, the words that Ernest said to me, we cannot allow ourselves to get caught up in the darkness in the world and forget to love one another and to help one another in need. Do what you can to help yourself and to help somebody else see the good in you and in them. And if you really don't know what to do, just smile at people. Just say hello. Just reach out to your friends. A little bit of goodness goes a very long way right now. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.